In a world shaped by crisis, hope can be more than optimism. It can be a practice. Welcome to the Diaries of the Bertha Accelerator. This series brings together changemakers, advocates, storytellers, and organizers who came together in Istanbul at Postane, hosted in collaboration with Bertha Spaces and Bertha Foundation. Throughout the series, we ask how hope-based communication can help us imagine stories of possibility while staying grounded in reality, and explore how new narratives can be born in the midst of crisis. In this episode, David Kabanda, a Ugandan food and social rights lawyer and director at the Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights, and Brezh Malaba, a Zimbabwean journalist, writer, and co-founder of the investigative news platform NewsHawks, reflect on journalism and advocacy as both a calling and a form of resistance. Drawing from their lived experiences, they explore the pressures of challenging powerful systems, the risks of speaking truth in constrained environments, and the responsibility of telling stories that serve the public. Together, they discuss how storytelling, legal action, and investigative journalism can confront injustice, nurture hope, and help communities imagine and build more just and accountable futures.
Good morning. I'm in the studio with Dr. David Kabanda, a food rights activist from Uganda in Africa. My name is Brezh Malaba. I'm a journalist based in Harare, Zimbabwe, and I cover social justice issues, human rights. We do a lot of investigations. I co-founded the NewsHawks in Harare, which is Zimbabwe's leading investigative journalism publication. That's briefly my biography. And we're here at Postane in Istanbul. I'd like to know more about the work that you do, David. Please tell us. For instance, I heard that the Law Society or the Law Council of Uganda recently granted you a practicing certificate to open a legal aid clinic. There was the idea that you came up with to open a legal aid clinic in Uganda so that you assist communities to assert their food rights in terms of providing litigation services primarily. How is that project kicked off? Have you started on that work? And I'd like to know what you hope to achieve with the local communities with that kind of service.
Okay, thank you so much. We come from a region where there is too much non-communicable diseases due to food-related causes. Many people are getting cancers now. Many of them, to a tune of 33%, are dying because of cardiovascular diseases, because of cancers, and many people did not know what is happening. Now, I'm a lawyer with a PhD in food law. So part of the social justice work that I have been doing is making sure that I promote policy-related or regulation of food environments to make sure that at least there is policy, there is regulation, and also support. Now, in our work, malnutrition or hunger is multidimensional when you look at it from a food systems approach, because there is production, then there is processing, then there is also serving. So what we decided to do is to make sure that we first of all start talking about the issue of law, accountability, governance.
But do the people know how to assert their rights in terms of using litigation as an instrument of development? Is that the thrust now to say where legal issues, food-related legal issues arise, a person can follow their legal rights? Is there that understanding as well in the communities?
Communities did not understand it at all. In fact, many of the community people got shocked. What does a lawyer have to do with things called food? And even in legal circles, lawyers frown at just hearing that lawyers are interested in food. What is that?
I found it quite fascinating, David, now that you mention it, because you are very vocal as an advocate for food rights. Even the name of your organization, the Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights, it speaks volumes about the whole story and what you want to achieve. And recently you won an award.
Yes.
Related to promoting food security and food rights. But it's causing discomfort, isn't it? That a
Yes.
lawyer would be
Yes.
talking about food. Some people say only medical doctors should be talking about
About
food.
food, yes.
But that's not correct, isn't it? You are saying food rights are a complex and all-encompassing topic. So there will be the legal perspective.
Yes.
And by the way, your PhD in food law from the University of the Western Cape in South Africa is probably the only one in Africa of that kind.
Yeah.
And I'm sure very soon you'll be flooded with lots of work, people asking for advice.
Yes.
But speak to me perhaps briefly about this idea that lawyers have no business talking about food. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah.
food affects everyone.
Food affects everyone because start from the seed. We have multinational seed companies. This is a lot of work with intellectual property, seed rights, germplasm, plant variety laws. You understand? All that is legal. But people don't see it. Secondly, when it comes to growing food, chemicals, you understand? Who is manufacturing? Who is importing? Who is exporting? Who is applying? There is an interplay of environmental law, environmental science, and our human nutrition. But there is also another dimension of trade. The moment trade is in a mix of a thing, then just know that because trade looks at profit, sometimes they don't care about lives of the people. And when it talks about food, then we have processing, where some people add or get, many elements from the food.
That's very interesting because, well, a lot of the chemicals, the toxic fertilizers, the dangerous pesticides coming into Africa are manufactured elsewhere.
Yes.
Some from Europe, some from China and other places. What can be done? I know you've spoken in the past about the importance of guarding against the use of these chemicals, which are harmful not only to human health, but to the environment. They pollute the soil, the air, and leading to environmental catastrophes in certain situations.
Okay, I think we have several solutions. I call them silent but loud solutions. One is purely legal. Because I come from Africa, and Africa is a consumer. In some instances, net importer of some food, rice. You know that the war in Ukraine affected us in terms of wheat, in terms of how could that be? That's so we sometimes we even do not understand the legal framework within which those guys produce and export to us. So if we are blind consumers, then there must be a legal body or a legal person to put light in what is a dark spot already.
The Ukraine issue is very important because it leads me to another point.
Yeah.
That although Africa is more than 60% of the world's arable land, Africa is the one continent which is most likely to be affected by hunger, food shortages, nutritional deficiencies, and yet we have the largest chunk of arable land in the world. Exactly. Why are we failing? Is it a policy issue? Could it be the climate crisis is beginning to affect us as well? What is it?
For me, Brezh, if you asked me, largely it's not. Okay, I don't want to downplay climate change. I don't want to downplay violence and crisis, but it is largely governance and accountability. Our leaders need to be reminded, if I may use that word, of the many commitments that they've made globally and at the continental level. If you have, for example, the Malabo declaration that 10% should be, who is there to hold our leaders accountable? As a people, we must hold ourselves accountable on the commitments, on international commitments, because they create what we call legitimate expectations. And eventually we need also to make sure that there is that force which protects the children because now you know that there is a lot of processed product.
Yes.
Although in developed countries, Europe, US, everywhere, it is only the poor people who eat junk food.
That's correct.
But you realize that in many African countries, it is those in corporate class who think that now when you eat junk, then you have elevated status. So I think, who protects our children? Because the children pick from what the parents are doing. They'll grow up eating that, and the children are also a target by the industry. The food industry is investing a lot of money in advertising, in promotion, in hooking up children. So if we do not have lawyers who understand nutrition, who understand food law, who understand how to protect the human right to adequate food, we will wake up to a generation that is too weak, too sick, and because food is everything. You are what you eat.
You are what you eat.
Yes.
It's a very important message. And David, when I talk to you like this, I can sense the passion that you have for the work that you do. You are a professional person who comes from the grassroots, which makes a difference. You've armed yourself with knowledge, and now you're an advocate, representing those who may not have a voice. But you talk about food being bad for the health of the children and so on. But in Africa, there's a rise in the importation of genetically modified foodstuffs. And we've seen that this is creating a problem. In the past, you've described it or likened it to neo-colonial practice, this GMO seed, and how big companies from the West largely want to control the genetic material, the seed, and manipulate the seed. How serious is this problem? Are we also going to face a rise in cancer problems? You spoke about diabetes and non-communicable diseases. How serious is this problem, and how strategic is it for Africa to rely on GMO seeds whose origin we may not even know?
I think the big seed companies are now targeting Africa as a big market. And I'm telling you, we are going to wake up to a situation where Africans may not have seed sovereignty. Much of the seed, even right now, is hybrid. Although our great grandparents used to save seed, share seed, and they've been breeding for centuries, millions of years. But now you have a company that works with people in government to come up with maybe a particular variety of corn. And he said this is the problem, because when you introduce such corn in Africa, we do not have closed gardens.
Right.
Our gardens are open and they are next to each other. So the potential and the risk of contaminating other gardens because of open pollination, for example, is too huge. Now, who will compensate my grandmother whose garden has now been contaminated with GMOs?
Right.
What happens, or what we've read and seen in other jurisdictions, is again now seed companies will force you to pay them even when they contaminate your garden.
Right, which is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, unfair, and it is something that is going to cause slavery to many people without knowing. And who guards against biopiracy, for example?
A very important question is the whole world is now focused on healthy living and wellness. And so what you eat will determine to a large extent how your health is going to develop with time. But tell me, David, in 2023, you were a Bertha Challenge fellow, focusing on food. And now you are a Bertha Accelerator fellow, visiting Istanbul in Turkey, a beautiful city. What have been your experiences so far? We were shown the rooftop garden, and most people remarked that, well, this is quite an innovative concept for urban farming. What have been your impressions so far?
I'll start with, I think Bertha innovation is the best in the world. it opens you up to new thinking, new innovation. The other fellowship where I did 2 projects in record time, in 1 year, I litigated 3 cases and I finished them. And
That's
the women,
remarkable.
yes, got back their land.
Yes.
And that one has now opened up you remember I told you we got what we call a legal aid certificate in
Right.
Uganda. So in Uganda, our organization is open to women to come and get free legal aid services. But beyond that, I worked on a film where we showed the double standards of EU when it comes to pesticides. That pesticides that have been banned in Europe, they issue their companies with export licenses and then they bring to Africa. Now, in this accelerator program, I'm learning new things.
Right.
First, how do you communicate the social change to cause more impact?
Yes.
Maybe we have been so much into courtroom and we are not communicating this properly for people to come and uptake the services. But number 2, how do you cause like social enterprises in communities? Because when I did the film, EU asked me, so where are the alternatives?
Right.
You are talking about the harmful chemicals, but you have no alternatives. They are pesticides. And now from this accelerator program, I see that we can offer alternatives. Other people like Postane, they are here. They are offering alternatives.
Right.
These are alternatives that we can replicate.
And also the way they've structured their schemes,
Yeah.
by partnering with social enterprises, cooperatives. It's quite amazing the kind of work that you can do.
Yes.
I mean, they source their foodstuffs for their cafe. They source it from cooperatives, grassroots organizations, and it's something that we can learn from. The profit motive is okay, but it should not be the defining factor of our humanity.
Yeah, and I think it is the social aspect, connecting with the grassroots people, connecting with the cooperatives that produce the food,
Yes.
making sure that you support and also bring in the issue of agroecology, how producing crops in tandem with nature, also makes money for the people who grow crops, because there is a wrong narrative from many governments that if you do agroecology, then you are promoting subsistence agriculture, which is not the case. At least here we can see, I have seen a seed bank. I have seen a rooftop garden. So even urban farming is possible. It will be helping to reduce on food miles for people to get fresh and nutritious vegetables and food staples. I think this is possible, and I want to thank the Bertha Foundation to put up these programs. In this accelerator, I'm telling you, it's not only teaching, but giving tools and empowerment to change community, to change society. I love the restaurant. I also love the souvenir shop. I call it souvenir because everything that is there is for remembering. I think there are too many good things that we can take back home.
Yes, the good memories. But tell me, finally, my final question to you is about the consultancy work that you are venturing into, and now we're talking of a global perspective on these issues. Everyone on this planet is linked one way or the other. The pollution that you can cause in the factories of Europe or the factories of China will affect people in Latin America or Africa and other parts of the world. So do you feel that there's internationally, there is that perspective which looks at the interests of the entire planet, or we're just living in our little silos without caring about the impact on other communities elsewhere?
I want to tell you that the concern is global. At least very many global voices are coming up for a planet that is sustainable.
Right.
And I just want to tell you that although we see fossil and fuel companies bringing in a lot of money and all the things that we think are against the planet, but there are very many movements like the agroecology movement globally. I'm part of the global coalition promoting agroecology. I'm part of the global right to food and nutrition movement, and I'm also part of the global peasants and people working in rural communities movement. But most importantly, I am a UN FAO legal expert
Right.
on right to food, and I'm helping countries in Africa to come up with laws that framework laws on the right to food. In Africa, at least, they came up with a model law, and I'm now working with the legal department of FAO to develop guidelines of domestication of that model law. It is a very beautiful framework. If we have it, if all countries in Africa, for example, embrace that model law and they come up with national laws, we will be good to go, because it has issues to do with indigenous knowledge, the food regulation, seed accountability mechanisms, then monitoring, redress. So all these wonderful provisions are part of that legal framework. And I'm happy because globally, the movement is growing. The right things will win at the end of the day.
The right things will win at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Today I was talking to Dr. David Kabanda. Is the leader of the Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights, and he comes from Uganda and is doing tremendous work. David, thank you for the interview.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brezh. Good morning. I'm here with my colleague, Brezh Malaba from Zimbabwe, an outstanding investigative journalist. We'll be having just a conversation on social justice and how he is looking at it and then causing impact in society. Thank you so much for joining the show this morning.
Thank you, David. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Brezh. I want to find out from you, you have been a Bertha Fellow. And how was that, your experience with the project that you handled?
Yes, that's correct. 2023, I was a Bertha Challenge Fellow. Our group was called the Food People because we're focusing on food rights and how perhaps corporate interests affect people's access to their food rights. And it was quite a memorable experience for me. The work that I started during the fellowship continues today. As a result of that fellowship, I'm now running also a website specializing in food security, sustainable agriculture, and the climate crisis. So the work that we did was an eye-opener. I conducted investigations. In Zimbabwe, there was a problem to do with corruption in the agricultural sector. Money which was meant to boost food security was diverted, stolen, in other words, by politicians and their corporate cronies. And as a result, Zimbabwe is a food deficit country. It can rain, you can get a good rainy season, and the following year there'll be more or less adequate food, but still you'll be importing. But if you get a drought, people can actually reach a point of starvation. And it's not proper from a governance perspective to have hunger, endemic hunger, terrorizing the masses. You've got to reach a point where the government says we have these policies, and these policies must be sustainable. So there's that challenge. But the fellowship work also taught me that the grassroots communities are doing a lot from a livelihoods perspective. They are far ahead of the governments in Africa, most of the grassroots communities. When you go to the ground, spend a week with people in remote areas, they'll teach you a lot. And I learned quite a lot. I mean, you'd meet women from remote villages who would show you some seed and tell you that this seed has been passed on from generation to generation. We don't use seed from elsewhere.
Now, Brezh, having talked about that, maybe tell us about your experiences in using investigative journalism in changing the policy landscape. How are we going to use your expertise in investigative journalism to change policy?
It's a very important topic for us because using journalism, we use it as an instrument of social change, an instrument for social and economic development, people can be empowered through the agency provided by journalism. Journalism can provide an interface between the communities on the ground, the policymakers, the companies that are in that space of, for instance, supplying food. As a result of the conversations that arise from there, you then begin to find answers to problems that affect society. It could be hunger-related issues, it could be nutritional issues. But whereas you find the answers, you must also remain alive to the fact that there are also wrongdoers, people who abuse power. Money meant for farming, money meant to support remote villages can be misappropriated. And as a result, we come in as journalists and ask the tough questions.
Yeah, Brezh, we have also interfaced with the phenomenon called hope. How reassuring is your investigative journalism to the people? Because we know that there is a junction, if I may call it, between politics, people, and power. So how do we diffuse that? Where is the hope?
Politics, people, and power. These components intersect in very fascinating ways. And it's important in communities to foster a sense of hope. Because as they say, fear demobilizes, but hope organizes. And so that is an important message that our journalism carries. It's an instrument that delivers hope to the people. That even though there may be challenges today, we must have a conversation, an honest conversation, and look for the answers. And be honest to each other, and be truthful. In our governance, we must be accountable and transparent. The handling of public funds must be done above board. We should not accept mediocrity. Let's aspire for higher standards. So that is the message, the optimism, the nation-building initiative, impetus that we bring as journalists. The problem that we face as journalists in Zimbabwe is that the authorities have come to view journalists, especially investigative journalists, as enemies of the state. And so you're not treated as a partner in socio-economic development, but as an enemy. And they are willing to crush you at any moment. And so journalists are being jailed, editors have been jailed. This year alone, you count many journalists who have gone to prison just for doing their work.
Then that is very sad. But I know that you've started a news agency, a social news agency. How is that mobilizing hope for the persecuted journalists or journalism?
We founded the Center for Public Interest Journalism, which publishes the NewsHawks. The NewsHawks is an investigative journalism platform. We also do breaking news. The experience has been varied. We have recorded some successes, but there have been also difficulties. Among the successes is the fact that we have elevated investigative journalism in Zimbabwe to a place where the ordinary citizen can take pride and say, look, if you want to understand what's really happening with this issue, let's wait for this week's newspaper from these guys. And they'll be referring to us. And we feel grateful that the community is beginning, the society is beginning to see us from that perspective. So you've got to be a trusted source of news. Are you fact-checking your stories? Are you training your journalists? Are you remaining alive to the legal imperatives? Because as journalists, we operate within the realm of the law. We are different from rumor mongers who operate on social media. We are professional journalists, and there are standards and ethical values that we must uphold. And so, using all that, the market, I'm referring to the people of Zimbabwe and the wider world, have begun to trust us. They repose their trust in us, and it's been quite an experience. But there are difficult moments. Getting funding for investigative journalism in Zimbabwe is difficult now with this climate. It's difficult. Journalists have lost their jobs. Media houses are under a lot of financial strain. Just to travel from one province to another, chasing a story is difficult because you need to make sure that you have adequate transport for your news team. You must look after your team. They need accommodation, they need food, they need communications, they need gadgets. In Zimbabwe, there's a problem. Most journalists in Zimbabwe are struggling just to get professional equipment. I'm talking of basic recorders, video recorders, audio recorders, cameras. You're talking of laptops. You're talking of a laptop that not only functions properly, but as a source of electricity which keeps it going. And you must also have a laptop which is connected to the internet. Once you don't have those tools, it's difficult for you to operate. So that is the experience that you get on the ground that we face. When we look at the problems that face professional journalists. So you can imagine what happens to the freelancers who are not even, who don't belong to a media house. So the challenge can be quite daunting, but it's also an opportunity, in my opinion, because it means then that those with the ability to help journalists, to support journalists, should step in and step up and help out. Zimbabwean journalism is very important for the democracy of the country.
Okay, I have just two more questions and we close. How is that your social enterprise, your organization, bringing in the aspect of a continental nature such that Zimbabwe is not isolated and also global? Are you connecting into global movements or continental movements?
Yes, that's a very important question. Thank you for that. We are part of African networks and international networks.
Okay.
Big investigations involving cross-border crime, for instance. We participate in investigations, and that helps you to mobilize funding for certain specific projects.
Okay.
But this is ad hoc funding, and it often comes with the projects that are initiated elsewhere. Yeah. Initiating investigative projects in Zimbabwe is possible, but it has become increasingly difficult because of the funding constraints, even internationally, where journalists would go and seek funding for maybe independent journalism. That door increasingly is being shut now. But yes, collaborations have been very useful to us, and we're grateful to the partners that we work with. We've worked with people from South Africa, many countries, participating in sometimes cross-border investigations. You know, those collaborations are also an opportunity for you to teach your own local journalists on new trends, how to use technology, satellite mapping, and so on, as tools for investigative journalism. So collaborations are important, and one of the reasons why I'm here is actually to establish contracts and work on collaborations. And
that was going to be my last question. As a fellow in this Bertha Accelerator, what is your take home? Okay, what is that near future that we, from your own perspective, what should we expect?
Networking and collaborations. I've learned a lot here. There are people with vast experience. I'm tapping into the knowledge and the wisdom. And I can see that networking could be one way of solving your funding problems, in the sense that then you are open to new ideas. And some people can bring funding for you from other sources that you may never know exist. So my eyes are being opened. Every day we discuss, not only in the sessions, but after the sessions as well. When we are relaxed out there, enjoying the beautiful city of Istanbul, while we talk business and how we can push the work forward. So I have hope in my heart that we will not collapse. Even if we do, we will we will plant the seeds of hope that are going to germinate. And if they don't benefit the current generation, they will benefit future generations. So journalism in Zimbabwe will not die. We will not allow it to die. But it's a difficult moment, and we hope that we can get partnerships that are meaningful and useful to us.
Thank you so much. Talking about hope, I've learned here at Postane, there is a poster there that hope is a discipline. It's not emotion, it's nothing, but it is a discipline. So it has been Brezh Malaba, our expert investigative journalist from Zimbabwe. Thank you so much for joining the show. It has been a blessing to have you share your insights and your experiences and also the future plans of investigative journalism in the continent, in Zimbabwe, but also causing social impact. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. Much appreciated.
This episode was made possible by contributions from the Bertha Foundation.